She's clumsy, chaotic, and just bumped into the billionaire of her dreams. What could possibly go wrong? Lila Thompson was a walking disaster. Shoes untied, coffee in hand, papers threatening to escape from every corner of her tote bag, she had the uncanny ability to trip over absolutely nothing. That particular Thursday, she was running late for a meeting at a startup she desperately hoped would notice her talent for graphic design. She rounded the corner of Madison Avenue, phone in one hand, coffee in the other, and, smack, crashed headfirst into someone. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry," she squeaked, wobbling on her heels. The person she had collided with didn't even flinch. Tall, impeccably dressed, and with a calm that seemed to absorb all chaos around him, or her, in this case. Lila blinked up at her victim. And then she saw, blonde hair perfectly styled, a tailored navy suit that screamed, "I own more companies than this street has pigeons," and piercing green eyes that made her knees wobble even more than her clumsiness usually did. "Are you okay?" the stranger asked, voice smooth and confident, as if apologizing to a human hurricane was just another Tuesday. Yes. I mean, no. Well, yes, I'm fine, mostly, except my dignity, which, Lila waved vaguely at the sidewalk, where her scattered papers and spilled coffee formed a tragic art installation. The stranger bent down gracefully, picking up a paper with one hand while tucking a lock of perfectly styled hair behind the ear. "I think your dignity might be retrievable," they said, handing Lila a soggy, coffee-stained resume. "And I'm guessing you're Lila Thompson?" How did you know that?" A faint smirk appeared. "Let's just say I have a habit of noticing the people who almost knock me over on busy streets." And just like that, Lila Thompson was officially, undeniably, head over heels flustered, and she hadn't even had a chance to apologize properly. By some cosmic joke, the accidental collision turned into a coffee shop conversation, which turned into an invite to lunch. Lila sat across from the stranger, who, it turned out, was Evelyn Sinclair, billionaire heiress and tech mogul. The contrast was almost comical, Lila's messy bun and coffee-stained blouse versus Evelyn's sleek silk blouse and perfectly manicured nails. "So," Evelyn said, leaning back in her chair, "you just happen to trip into millionaires on your way to work often?" "Not on purpose," Lila squeaked, cheeks flaming. "Usually it's just mailboxes, sidewalk cracks, small dogs. You know, hazards of life." Evelyn chuckled, a sound that made Lila forget how to breathe. "Well, consider this a happy hazard." Lunch ended with Evelyn insisting she drive Lila back to her office. On the way, Lila accidentally pressed the horn instead of the blinker, nearly sending Evelyn into a mild panic. "You're a danger on wheels," Evelyn said, laughing. "But in a cute way." Lila protested. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "I'll keep that in mind." By the end of the day, Lila's clumsiness had made her leave a lasting impression, and Evelyn found herself wanting to see more of the chaotic, adorable human who made her laugh without even trying. A week later, Lila found herself staring at an invitation that made her feel simultaneously terrified and slightly dizzy. She had no idea how it had happened. One moment she was fumbling with coffee in the park, and the next, Evelyn Sinclair had personally invited her to a charity gala. "Dress code, black tie," the invitation said. Lila stared at her wardrobe, which consisted mostly of jeans, oversized sweaters, and one slightly wrinkled skirt. "Do I own a dress?" she whispered to her cat, Mr. Whiskers, who responded with a judgmental blink. The evening arrived. Lila stepped out of her tiny apartment and gasped at her reflection. She looked nice. Really nice. A long, navy dress that actually complemented her complexion, her hair pinned up in a somewhat sophisticated bun, with a few strategically placed rebellious strands, and heels that made her feel like she was walking on stilts. She immediately tripped on the first step out the door. Of course. Evelyn was waiting in the lobby of the glittering hotel, looking stunning in a silver gown that caught the light with every movement. Her eyes widened the moment she saw Lila wobble. "Need a hand?" she asked, voice barely hiding amusement. "I've got this," Lila said, trying to straighten herself, only to stumble into a decorative fountain. Water splashed everywhere. Evelyn didn't even flinch. Instead, she laughed, a rich, melodic laugh that made Lila's face heat up faster than the splash on her dress. "You really do have a talent for chaos," Evelyn said, helping Lila up. "I prefer artistic interpretation," Lila mumbled, dripping wet and smiling sheepishly. Inside, the gala was a glittering sea of socialites, journalists, and very serious billionaires. Lila tried to blend in. She failed. She spilled champagne on a CEO's white tuxedo, dropped her clutch into a decorative sculpture, and somehow ended up leading a small parade of startled waiters chasing after a runaway canopy. Evelyn, watching from across the room, couldn't stop laughing. Not the polite, restrained kind, the full belly laugh that made heads turn. And when Lila finally made it over to her, soaked, frazzled, and covered in hors d'oeuvres remnants, Evelyn shook her head in disbelief. "You're unbelievable," she said, eyes sparkling. "I try," Lila said, collapsing dramatically into a chair. "I bring excitement wherever I go." Evelyn leaned in closer. "I like it," she said softly. "You're you." And in that chaotic, sparkling room, surrounded by people who probably took life way too seriously, Lila realized something. She was falling for the billionaire who found her disasters adorable. Evelyn extended her hand, brushing a soggy strand of hair from Lila's face. "Shall we make it through the night without further incidents?" Lila grinned. "I make no promises." And somehow, that was exactly perfect. The morning after the gala, Lila woke to a buzzing phone and a new kind of panic. Her head throbbed faintly, her dress from the night before was still crumpled on a chair, and, somehow, she had an invite to fly on Evelyn's private jet. "What did I do?" she muttered, staring at the screen. The message was simple. "Breakfast at the hangar. Don't be late. E." By the time she arrived, Evelyn was waiting beside a sleek, black jet that gleamed like it had been polished by angels. Evelyn's smile was calm and effortless, as if she had been born for boardrooms and first-class cabins, not for dealing with disasters on two legs. "Morning," Evelyn said, holding out a hand. "Ready to fly?" "Sure, as long as turbulence doesn't involve my life," Lila replied, trying to sound casual while secretly wondering if she should have stayed in bed forever. The flight started smoothly. Lila even managed to avoid tripping, until she reached for a tiny espresso cup in the galley and knocked over a stack of crystal champagne flutes. They clinked dangerously. Evelyn froze mid-step, eyes wide. Lila froze too. "I, meant to do that?" Lila asked nervously, attempting to catch the tumbling glassware. Evelyn caught the last one with an effortless flick of her wrist. "You're remarkable," she said, setting the cup down safely. "In a terrifyingly adorable way." Lila blinked. "Is that a compliment?" "It's everything," Evelyn said, leaning closer. "You're chaos and charm all at once. I can't tell which one I love more." Lila felt her stomach do a little flip. And then, naturally, she tripped over her own foot and bumped into Evelyn, sending them both toward the luxurious leather seats. Evelyn caught her mid-fall, and didn't let go. Their eyes locked, and for a suspended heartbeat, all the chaos faded. Lila could feel Evelyn's steady presence grounding her in a way that no sidewalk, no spilled coffee, and no fancy jet could ever manage. Finally, Lila giggled, embarrassed. "I swear I don't do this with everyone." "I hope not," Evelyn murmured, a mischievous glint in her eye. "It's much more fun this way." By the time the plane landed, Lila knew one thing for certain: life with Evelyn would be a constant adventure, filled with laughter, chaos, and very, very few dull moments. And she wouldn't trade a single tumble for the world. After the private jet escapade, Evelyn invited Lila out for what she called a simple city stroll. Lila, still wondering how she got roped into Evelyn's whirlwind life, agreed, because somehow, she couldn't say no to the woman who made her heart race and her knees wobble at the same time. It started innocently enough, walking through a bustling street market, sipping overpriced lattes, and dodging street performers. Lila managed not to trip, until a cart of fresh baguettes rolled straight toward her, sending her into a spectacular, slow-motion stumble that ended with a baguette under each arm. "Need a hand?" Evelyn asked, suppressing laughter as she expertly rescued Lila from knocking over an entire produce stand. "I'm fine," Lila insisted, wobbling like a newborn deer. "Just, redecorating the street market." Evelyn shook her head, smiling. "You're a natural disaster in designer heels." Next came lunch, where Lila accidentally ordered a 3-course tasting menu instead of a sandwich. By the time the appetizers arrived, she had spilled soup on her lap, knocked over the bread basket, and nearly set off a small fire with a flambé demonstration meant for another table. Evelyn simply watched, amused, and saved the day with a well-timed napkin rescue. "Do you always make dining an extreme sport?" Evelyn asked, eyes sparkling. "I like to live dangerously," Lila said, grinning through tomato soup stains. The grand finale of their simple city stroll occurred at a boutique hotel Evelyn had reserved for drinks. Lila, distracted by a particularly flashy chandelier, opened the wrong door and walked straight into a man's hotel room, tripping over the threshold and crashing into the coffee table. The man looked up, shocked. Can I help you?" Lila scrambled to apologize, cheeks blazing. "I'm so sorry." "Wrong room." Evelyn appeared just in time, taking Lila's hand. "This is Lila," she said smoothly to the confused man, "and yes, she's exactly as chaotic as she looks." The man nodded slowly, as if the explanation made perfect sense, and retreated. Once inside the correct hotel suite, Lila collapsed onto the couch, laughing and groaning at the same time. Evelyn joined her, pulling her close. "You really do make life unpredictable," Evelyn said softly. "And you love it," Lila replied, resting her head against Evelyn's shoulder. Evelyn smirked. "Maybe. Or maybe I just like making sure you survive the chaos." Lila grinned. "Then I'm in good hands." And in that moment, surrounded by glittering city lights and the aftermath of another accidental misadventure, Lila realized something. She didn't need to be graceful, perfect, or careful. She just needed to be herself, with Evelyn by her side. Just when Lila thought she could catch a break, Evelyn surprised her with another invitation. This time, it was another charity gala, and she didn't even have time to panic before Evelyn handed her a glass of champagne and whispered, "Don't worry. You'll survive this one, probably." Lila stared at her reflection in the mirror, trying not to hyperventilate. She looked decent. Not perfect, but decent. Her dress was sleek, her hair didn't have stray spaghetti-like strands sticking out, and she had actually managed to walk down the stairs without tripping. A small victory. Of course, as soon as they arrived, Lila realized that her luck had its own sense of humor. The moment she stepped onto the red carpet, a small dog wearing a bow tie barreled straight at her, and in trying to dodge it, she bumped into a photographer, sending his camera crashing toward the ground. Evelyn was at her side in seconds, catching the camera like it weighed nothing. "You're terrifying," Evelyn muttered, though her eyes were sparkling. "Or enchanting," Lila corrected, a hopeful smile on her face. The night went from bad to, well, worse. Lila somehow managed to spill red wine on a politician's white tuxedo, knock over an enormous floral arrangement, trip over her own heels while laughing at Evelyn's teasing. And yet, Evelyn never looked annoyed. Instead, she held Lila's hand through every mishap, guiding her with patience, amusement, and just the tiniest touch of flirtation. At one point, Lila found herself stuck on a stage where a celebrity speaker was giving a heartfelt speech. She panicked, tried to step down, and accidentally slid into a giant pile of balloons. Evelyn came running, laughing so hard she almost couldn't breathe, and helped pull her out. "You're impossible," Evelyn said, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. "And you love it," Lila replied, brushing confetti from her hair. Evelyn leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a soft murmur only Lila could hear. "Maybe I do. Maybe I love all of it, especially you." Lila's heart did a backflip. She looked up at Evelyn, saw the sincerity in those piercing green eyes, and finally felt it, that fluttering, dizzying feeling of falling head over heels, with a billionaire, no less. And maybe, just maybe, she didn't care that she was completely clumsy, awkward, and chaotic. Because Evelyn didn't seem to mind one bit. After surviving 2 charity galas, a private jet ride, and several city misadventures, Evelyn decided it was time for a quiet weekend getaway. Lila, naturally, was terrified. Quiet was not her strong suit. Chaos? That she could manage. Evelyn's mansion in the countryside was stunning. Rolling hills, a sparkling lake, and a garden that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Lila, however, tripped over the welcome mat before she even got out of the car. "Every time I think I've seen the worst, you outdo yourself," Evelyn said with a smirk, helping Lila to her feet. "I call it talent," Lila replied, brushing herself off. The first activity? A canoe ride on the lake. Evelyn had pictured something serene and romantic. Lila pictured, well, disaster waiting to happen. She climbed in first, immediately tipping the canoe slightly. Evelyn steadied it with one hand while trying not to laugh. "You're like a walking storm," she said. "I bring excitement wherever I go," Lila said proudly, ignoring the fact that the canoe wobbled dangerously with every word. Halfway across the lake, Lila leaned over to get a better look at a duck, and fell backward into Evelyn's lap. The splash wasn't huge, but Lila's arms flailed, water splashing both of them. Evelyn, completely soaked but still laughing, pulled Lila close. "You're impossible," she said, though the laughter in her voice made Lila's heart skip a beat. "And you, love it," Lila whispered, feeling water dripping into her eyes. The rest of the weekend was a series of mishaps. Lila tried horseback riding and somehow ended up tangled in the reins. She attempted to cook breakfast and set off the smoke alarm within 5 minutes. A simple nature hike ended with Lila tripping over a tree root and landing in a patch of wildflowers, much to Evelyn's amusement. Through it all, Evelyn never stopped holding her hand, helping her up, or laughing at her chaotic charm. And when the sun finally set over the lake, the two of them sat together on the dock, soaking wet, slightly bruised, and grinning like idiots. Evelyn tucked a wet strand of hair behind Lila's ear. "You're my kind of chaos," she murmured. "And you're my kind of billionaire," Lila replied with a grin. Evelyn leaned in slowly, and this time, Lila didn't stumble. No tripping, no crashing, no chaos, just a soft, perfect kiss that made everything else in the world disappear. Lila realized, as she leaned against Evelyn under the pink and orange sky, that she didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to be herself. And somehow, with all her clumsy chaos, after a weekend of lakeside chaos and romantic canoe crashes, Lila thought things might finally calm down. She was wrong. Very, very wrong. It all started with what was supposed to be a simple brunch with Evelyn at a trendy city cafe. Lila, eager to impress, and still a bit damp from the countryside adventure, tried to navigate the narrow aisles between tables in her new heels. Naturally, she collided with a waiter carrying a tray of pastries. Pastries flew. Croissants soared. A single eclair landed on the lap of a woman snapping selfies at the next table. Evelyn appeared instantly, helping Lila stand upright, and gave the flustered cafe patrons a dazzling smile. "She's enthusiastic," Evelyn said, voice smooth as silk. "Yes," Lila said, cheeks flaming, enthusiastically destructive. But the chaos didn't stop there. One of the pastries had landed near a local paparazzo who happened to be at the cafe, hoping to get a shot of Evelyn Sinclair. One click later, the photo of Lila mid-fall, croissant in one hand and espresso dripping from her sleeve, was trending on social media with the headline, "Billionaire's new girlfriend or public hazard?" Lila groaned. "Oh no. No, no, no. I am going to go viral for all the wrong reasons." Evelyn, calm as ever, leaned down and whispered in Lila's ear, "Relax. You're perfect in every imperfect way. Let them laugh. I find it adorable." Lila blinked. "You actually think this is cute?" "I do," Evelyn said, grinning. Mostly because you're mine, and no number of viral photos will change that. The rest of the day was a whirlwind of interviews, emojis, and text messages from friends laughing hysterically at the croissant catastrophe. Lila tried to hide, but Evelyn refused to leave her side. Later, back in Evelyn's penthouse, Lila slumped dramatically on the couch. "I'm a disaster," she admitted, hiding her face in a pillow. "You're a disaster I wouldn't trade for the world," Evelyn said, placing a hand on Lila's shoulder. She leaned in, kissing the top of her head. "Come on, let's make the headlines irrelevant. How about we order pizza and watch bad movies?" Lila laughed, feeling the tension melt away. "Deal. But I warn you, I may trip over the pizza box too." Evelyn chuckled, pulling her closer. "I'll catch you every time." And in that messy, imperfect, chaotic love, Lila realized something important. She didn't need to be graceful, viral-proof, or even composed. She just needed Evelyn. And Evelyn seemed to need her. Lila thought she had mastered the art of surviving life with Evelyn. She was wrong. It all started with a simple plan, a romantic evening at Evelyn's penthouse, complete with homemade pasta, because Lila insisted she could cook without catastrophe, famous last words. She had carefully followed a recipe, measuring ingredients with precision, and for a glorious 10 minutes, nothing went wrong. Then, she sneezed. The sneeze was monumental. The sauce flew. Lila slipped on the tiled floor, arms flailing, and somehow launched the entire pot of spaghetti toward Evelyn. Evelyn, seated elegantly at the dining table, caught the flying spaghetti in midair with a single hand. She blinked at Lila, eyes wide, then burst into laughter. "How do you do that?" "I don't know," Lila admitted, picking herself up, sauce dripping from her hair. "I swear I'm usually less catastrophic." Evelyn shook her head, still laughing. "Lila, you are a walking, talking comedy show. And I wouldn't change a thing." Just then, Lila tripped again, this time over Evelyn's rug. The weeks after the spaghetti incident passed in a blur of laughter, mishaps, and very intentional romance. Lila had somehow become a permanent fixture in Evelyn's high-powered life, and Evelyn had become the calm to Lila's hurricane. Their days were filled with late-night kitchen disasters, Lila attempting pancakes, Evelyn saving the smoke alarm. Private jet adventures, Lila tripping over her own luggage, Evelyn catching her mid-fall. City misadventures, shopping carts, cafe spills, and viral social media moments. Every mishap brought them closer. Every laugh, every flustered apology, every accidental splash of coffee or sauce became a little thread weaving their lives together. One sunny Saturday, Evelyn had a surprise planned. She blindfolded Lila and led her to the rooftop of her penthouse. The city stretched endlessly around them, sparkling like a sea of lights and possibilities. "Open your eyes," Evelyn said softly. Lila removed the blindfold, and froze. String lights hung overhead, a small table with champagne and strawberries awaited, and Evelyn was kneeling in front of her, holding a tiny velvet box. "I've survived your chaos," Evelyn began, smiling, "your trips, spills, social media disasters, and every spectacular misadventure in between. And I love every single bit of it. Lila Thompson, will you marry me?" Lila blinked, caught between laughter and tears. You want me? Me, the disaster magnet? I want you. All of you. Chaos, clumsiness, disasters, and all," Evelyn said, grinning. "Because that's exactly who I love." Lila threw herself into Evelyn's arms, laughing until tears ran down her cheeks. Yes. Yes. A million times yes. That evening, the city sparkled beneath them, and Lila realized something magical. She didn't need to be graceful, elegant, or perfect. She just needed to be herself, and Evelyn had already fallen for every glorious, chaotic, clumsy bit of her. They kissed, champagne glasses clinking, confetti from some earlier rooftop party sticking to their hair, and Lila thought, "Finally, I've found my person. And we're going to be a perfect disaster together forever." And so, amidst laughter, spilled champagne, and a little chaos, they lived happily ever after, with all the misadventures they could handle. Life after the proposal was, predictably unpredictable. Lila and Evelyn settled into a rhythm that was equal parts romantic comedy and heartwarming chaos. Domestic disasters. Lila quickly learned that running a penthouse with a billionaire came with unexpected challenges. She tried to do laundry once and somehow turned Evelyn's silk suits pink. Evelyn just shook her head, laughing, and said, "You make everything more colorful," literally. Cooking was even more dangerous. Lila's attempts at homemade risotto resulted in a small kitchen fire, a cloud of smoke so thick it triggered the building alarm. Evelyn saved the day yet again, but this time, she laughed so hard she nearly dropped the fire extinguisher. Public adventures. Their relationship remained a magnet for media attention. Paparazzi still tried to capture Lila tripping in heels, spilling coffee, or somehow turning everyday errands into viral spectacles. Evelyn handled the press like a pro, always protecting Lila while smirking at the absurdity of it all. "Smile, it's good publicity," Evelyn teased one morning as Lila accidentally fell into a fountain on the way to a business meeting. "Publicity is overrated," Lila called back, drenched but laughing. Travel mishaps. Private jets, exotic vacations, and spontaneous road trips became the norm. Somewhere between tripping over luggage and almost losing a passport in a luxury hotel, Lila realized that the world itself seemed to conspire to make her life hilariously complicated, and Evelyn was always there to steady her. Growing together. Through all the chaos, their love only deepened. Lila's clumsiness never embarrassed her in front of Evelyn. If anything, it became their trademark. They had inside jokes about spilled drinks, tripping disasters, and viral moments. Friends joked that dating Lila was like dating a romantic comedy in human form, but Evelyn never minded. Evelyn even encouraged Lila to embrace her chaotic charm professionally. She funded a creative project where Lila's disasters became part of her art, turning her awkwardness into a celebrated signature style. Lila's life was messy, but beautiful. Quiet, perfect moments. Despite the chaos, there were quiet moments too, cuddling on the sofa in pajamas, sharing pancakes, hopefully without a fire alarm, dancing barefoot in the kitchen, or simply holding hands while walking in the park. In those moments, there was no tripping, no spilled coffee, just love, laughter, and the sense that they had finally found their person. Epilogue, forever a beautiful mess. Years later, Lila and Evelyn were still the same chaotic, hilarious, and utterly devoted couple everyone loved. They still laughed over Lila's mishaps, still went viral occasionally, still managed to survive private jets, gala disasters, and crowded streets. But above all, they had each other. And in a life full of trips, spills, and messy moments, Lila realized that falling, literally or figuratively, wasn't so scary when Evelyn's arms were always there to catch her. Because some loves are perfect, even if the people in them are gloriously, delightfully imperfect.